Good morning and welcome to Daily Game Design. It would be kind of fun to develop a little bit of a tagline. Something related to like the sentiment of where dreams come true. That sort of thing would be nice. Well, welcome. I indeed finished building the prototype eventually. So I finished this, printed everything out. I had the help of Ricky and then Sabina and new friends Sabina and Alvaro yesterday. So we had a really nice playtesting session. Ricky, myself, Seth, Sabina, and Alvaro were there, and we had a really nice time. My surfing game showed potential, but also some cracks. One thing that stood out is that Sabina basically got bullied the whole game and had almost zero interesting choices. So that was not good. It was actually the very first thing that happened to her. She started a wave, and then Ricky cut her off. Somebody made a little route, made a little path. She made a path kind of beside them. There really wasn't much room left on the map. And then Ricky just cut her off and made a path in front of her. That was the very first thing that happened to her. And then the rest of the game was sort of like that. Her turns were basically dead, not that interesting, and it was good to see that. But here's the very, very good news. The way that the turn structure works forces more dice to remain on the board. So that means there's a lot more maneuvering, there is, jockeying, and players are just in each other's way. It's more crowded. So you're having to work around people, and you're falling off waves more often. So that was really cool. But this was the key. As we were playing, people started telling their surfing stories. That to me was mind blowing. Like the two, Sabina and Alvaro, were really remembering weird moments that happened out in Waikiki and other stuff. So for the game to evoke memories, I think is gold. I think that's awesome. In other words, it's really working on that level. Now it's just how to clean up the gameplay. So that it's more interesting for more people more of the time. And I had some ideas for that. That's not what I intended to be the focus of today's session, but I think I will at least look at those notes just a little bit before I really look at Solar Smugglers here. Things are really coming together for the retreat. It's just very last minute details. We met last night just after playtesting. Things seem to be going very well. I can't remember if Randy is in my Discord. I feel like he is. But he's not. Maybe he left a while ago. Ricky's planning on coming. I don't know if he has registered yet. Party wave. So I wrote down some notes here. Playtest, the Poly Highway. Interaction was better, leaving dice at the end. Yeah, leaving dice at the end of the turn. Falling off was not great. Possible to bully people. That definitely happened. So some ideas we brainstormed toward the end. There was one idea that I thought was interesting. I think it's in the territory of fiddliness. So I'm not super drawn to it, but that is where you could stack dice. Actually, I'm going to open this anyway. I'm going to get I'm going to open up the mod for Solar Smugglers anyway, so I'm just going to show this quickly on Party Wave. So cutting off tails. So one idea was that you score based on the length, the number of dice, not anything on the dice, but the number of dice behind your surfboard when you land at the shore or on shore. And what that idea sparked was also something about being able to cut people's tails off. So let's say this is the case. Ignore the values. Let's say somebody cruises in here. What they would score, the surfboard would be right here. Oh, interesting. Oh man, my friend Adam is still looking for his car. Um, hmm. Yeah, just hang on 1 second. Let me help get this guy sorted out. He left a while ago, so that's not great. It's like a 3-minute walk up that way. So I don't know what happened. Oh no, that's the worst. All right, let's say this is the case. So this player would score 3 points plus 6 points. So let's say though some before yellow scored, blue did this. So this is the concept of like cutting somebody's tail off. Then they would only score 1 plus 6. So they cut right here, and so these 2 dice are lost. So even though you couldn't run across somebody on their surfboard, you could still cut across their wake. And I like it. But it's adding like a bunch of rules that I don't love. Although I just had a thought. I just had a thought. This whole thing is actually a little too nasty for me. I'm just realizing it also it would also cut off people's shapes. So all the stuff that they're building, and then suddenly somebody just like runs through and like cuts off part of the shape. I don't think I'm gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. That's too mean. I was gonna say you could do something like this because I've had trouble with the idea of like what does yellow do here? Is this awkward to like once they score, then they have to like pull this die off, pull their dice out, right? And I just feel like that kind of fiddliness will not be cool. Then I just had this thought of like, what if you actually replace their die? In other words, that helps because then you're adding another die to their pool, which increases their odds of rolling what they need. Or you give them all of those dice back. The thing is, why that wouldn't really help is like you're going to be scoring this anyway, and so these dice are all going to come back regardless. I don't love it. I don't love it. It's a cool idea, but I feel like it promotes a sort of strange negative interaction that I don't love. Okay, as another thing that was an issue, and this was like a more serious, it was a problem, and I think a solution. Well, we discussed a solution that I think gets kind of close to solving the problem. So it was too easy. So what happened was actually there was a really interesting case where. Okay, well let me describe the turn structure right now. The turn structure is that you check to score things at the start of your turn. So, for example, let's say this is the case, blue surfed all the way to shore. At the start of their next turn, they would score their shore dice, pull the dice off, re-roll, and go again. So, in other words, the dice just sit there in the way until blue's next turn. Which is what is contributing to like the crowdedness and the tension around like, positioning. And so I think it's really good. But here's what happened. So here was Alvaro. He was here. I'm trying. I want to practice this one actually. Because I think it's Alvaro, not Alvaro. So Alvaro was here. And Seth was here. Okay, so he had cut in here. It was Seth's turn and then Alvaro's turn. And so what happened? So Alvaro went here, and then Seth goes. Then Alvaro goes. Now it's Seth's turn again. So what does Seth do? He checks for scoring opportunities. He scores his wave, right? So he gets some points for this wave. Then it's his turn to actually roll and place dice. So then what does he do? He starts here, and he races down again and ends his turn there before Alvaro has a chance to score anything. So Alvaro actually falls off the wave technically. Like he can't go anywhere on his turn, so he falls off the wave. So Seth flies in, gets in the way, then Alvaro goes, then Seth scores and flies in again. So there's a problem there. And we discussed it. Like as if like maybe the possibility is not terrible that you could do that, but it should be harder to do than it was. Because Seth had all the confidence in the world, just rolled and rolled and rolled and kept going. The dice were friendly to him, but the thing is, what we understood is that it was 50-50 chance for him to be able to make it back. Because the odds of rolling something that is less than one less equal to or one greater than the die that is, that you just placed, that's of course 3 out of 6 chances. So it's 50% that you can make it back. I mean, kind of. I'm sure it's slightly less than that because you might roll doubles. You might roll nothing that works, and you might roll doubles, which would interrupt that rolling. So I don't know what chance you have of rolling doubles, but it would make it slightly less than 50. It would make it less than 50% that you would actually make it all the way to shore. So the issue that we discussed is that this was too easy. In other words, we need to adjust the odds. And I was kind of thinking, well, the latest idea was that if you rolled equal to or one less than, it drops it to 1 in 3 chance, which is more appropriate odds. But I don't really like now that I'm kind of, it's almost like I've made sixes like almost impossible to use or to sixes were too powerful before. They were too obvious to use. Now you can't even really use sixes at all. Unless you start with a 6, but you cannot start with a 6. Actually, you can, because you could move in here, right? You could move in, mark with a board, and then roll a 6. So you could do that. But rather than equal to or less than by 1, I was thinking not equal to, but rather up 1 or down 1. And those are the only dice you can place. So up 1 and down 1, I feel like actually would be more interesting. Also still very simple to communicate. You could even think of it like the wave, kind of getting a little more energy, a little less energy. So I think up 1 or down 1, it gets us to where we want with the odds, but it also lets you kind of push to a 6 if you really want. And I think that's kind of nice to be able to get up there. So anyway, I think that's the main thing to test, I would say, is making it less likely to roll and make progress by reducing the odds or changing the odds to worse odds. So I think that's the main thing I would want to tweak for next time. There's something else. Oh. So also Sabina, she wanted she wanted to feel like she had some more opportunities, and one of those would be like just to re-roll. If you had a bad roll, I want to be able to re-roll something. And so we brainstormed that maybe every player gets like 2 Shaka tokens, and after any re-roll, 2 Shaka tokens for the whole game, and you can spend a Shaka token to re-roll. I think that's cool. The other thing that definitely needs some workshopping is considering now to adjust odds, which will hopefully slow people down. Is +1, +1 -1. So getting rid of the equal. Yeah. Falling off the wave was very awkward. I didn't have a really great way to describe it as a rule, especially during like everybody cutting each other off. The thing is how to come up with like an elegant rule, which is something like if you have nowhere to go, you fall off the wave. So like there's not even a reason to roll. Um, and I think I need to add a fall off the wave check to. Oh, wait. Because there are two types of falling off the wave, actually. One is you're boxed in. So even though, like, even if you roll, you can't go anywhere. You can't place any dice. You're just boxed in. The other way of falling off the wave is if you roll, but your dice are bad and you can't adjust them with any cards to make the to be able to place legally. So you fall off the wave in that case too. The one happens at the start of your turn to the score check. Yeah. So at least you can start another wave. But by then you're probably just behind most people or most everybody else in the wave. I don't know. The thing is, what I realized is there are two types of falling off the wave. One of them we can take care of with like a check at the start of the turn. But I don't know exactly how to like resolve that. Like if you have no legal placement, no legal placement, no legal movement, um, and start a new wave. At least like on the same turn they would start another wave. If fall off the wave, recover your dice and start a new wave. If you fall off because you rolled poorly, this is different. I think you just collect your dice and you just get out of the way. Yeah, surfboard. Falling off the wave, I just feel like it's not great. I feel like it's finicky. Um, um, yeah. So this is not. It's not ideal, but hmm. Yeah, like I don't love this. It just feels like too many rules. Like it's getting definitely inelegant. So the question is, do we just break theme? Huh. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna transition to Solar Smugglers because I think there's some kind of cool things that just kind of worked out for me, which all came from trying to build a prototype. And as I was like creating the print and play files, some stuff occurred to me that I am happy to describe. So, like falling off the wave. How to say this? Because here's the weird thing: you could you could actually put yourself in a position where you're just getting blocked a lot. And so you could actually score the wave way up here. So this is the situation. So now check this out. So red, let's say red comes in here. Ignore the values on the dice. Let's say red comes in here on purpose. Okay. Right now, there is no rule in place that feels like reasonable. So what would happen is, at least in the flow of the turn, you're supposed to roll again. You roll again, and you will not be able to place anything because you're blocked everywhere. These are your only three These are your only three potential placement spots, and they're all full. So you're still supposed to roll, even though guaranteed there is nowhere to go. Okay. The other option is if we try the cutting the tail concept, but I feel like that has a lot of unintended consequences in other ways that I don't love. That's what I was thinking about earlier. Because let's say this is the case, and oh no, this is the case, and here's blue. So blue can score. Let's say blue wants to score this shape right here. Okay, so blue wants to score this shape and could score this shape on blue's next turn. However, red cruises in and cuts off blue like this. Right? So does blue get to score or not? I don't really think so, right? Because that shape, because like, how do you score and not this be super annoying? Because then you got to move this die and then maybe forget where the die was. You probably won't, but like, weird stuff can happen. No, you wouldn't forget, but it's just like moving these dice around just seems really, really kind of dumb. Oh, you know what? The other thing that Sabina mentioned is maybe some more space. And that is possible. Like adding another column right here is doable. Because it was really crowded. There really was, with 4 players, it was hard to get in there. I think with 3 players, this is perfect. This whole thing is perfect. With 2 players, I think this amount of space is going to be fine. Well, I think falling off is still a problem. It's mostly because you can just wedge yourself in here. And then what? Then you fall off, and then you just score 3 points, and that's it. Yeah, I don't really like the idea of somebody generating points by falling off. But it has the potential to feel bad the way it's working right now, because people can cut you off, and then what do you do? Yeah, weird. Anyway, that's a problem for another day. I'm gonna go to Solar Smugglers. So here's what I discovered. Here's what I realized when printing this thing yesterday. I don't remember if it's that I didn't feel like printing so many cards or what. But what I recognized was that I think the batteries should not be in the game. So here's one. I'm sorry, the battery cards. And the reason there are a couple reasons for it. Especially because we're cutting down the number we're cutting down from 2 solar storms to 1. I didn't like the idea that wait, I think I'm missing a couple. I didn't appreciate the idea that like half of the cards in the game are going to be left out. Wait a minute. Um I think I had the card count wrong. I think I did. There's 5 here. So I didn't like the potential swinginess. Here's the other thing though. The batteries offer very little in the way of action tokens. So you're bidding on stuff, but not able to do anything on your turn. You're getting the potential to earn back a bunch of credit. Excuse me, a bunch of credits, but you're not able to like. I mean, there's almost no movement or no peaks. Like, look, these are pretty blank cards, right? So even though a couple seem decent, for all the other bidders, there's not much going on. And so this is kind of a dead auction. And if the batteries disappear early, or if players just don't find them for a long time, then these are just completely wasted. So what made sense to me then is I've changed these. So I think a couple of nice effects. So consequences of getting rid of the batteries. Number 1, the smuggler deck is going to be less swingy. It's also going to be more generous because it turns out that the battery cards are worth the least of everything. So, like objectively, these are worth less than all of the other card types. The way I did it, like for as far as like spreadsheet design, was that the water bottles and the weapons are worth 7 or 10 points of power or units of whatever. And the batteries, I think, are worth 5 and 3 or something like that. A 6 and 3 or 6 and 4. No, this is a 3 right here. Yeah, so the E's are worth okay, so and this is again the spreadsheet design. A peak, which is this symbol right here, is worth 3 power. A move is worth 2 power, and then a victory point is just worth 1 power. So the E cards right here, which are the more valuable versions of batteries, they were worth 6 power at the most. And then the F, which are the weaker, the less valuable versions of the batteries, are only worth 3. And that's, the most you can get off of these cards if you're bidding for them is 6 power or 3 power. Everything else, like this is 10 power right here. The A cards have 10 power at the most. And just look at the difference there. So anyway, so now to just cut the batteries, I think will be a helpful change. Because more players are going to be getting more cards more of the time that help them in more ways. So I think that's nice. So that was a really big change. Getting rid of the batteries, even though there are even more consequences. Here's another one. So now instead of 1 in 3, no, it's not quite 1 in 3 chance. What would it be? So it's 20. So just better than 1 in 7 chance to guess, to be right if you have a battery and you just go to a random location and flip a card. That was 1 in 7 chance. Now what it is, if it was slightly better than 1 in 7. If it was a water bottle, there are only 4 of those. If it was a water bottle, 4 in 20, so it's 1 in 5 chance. Wait. Oh, no, what was I saying? It's okay. Okay, so the battery is actually 1 in 3 chance, slightly better than 1 in 3 chance. The water bottle was 1 in 5 chances that you flip it and you just randomly get it right. The weapon, however, is 1/2 chance. So there you had a really good chance of flipping a weapon. So if you got a weapon in the auction, you had a good chance of just going to a random location and flipping what you need. Okay, so again, it is 1 in 5 chance for the water bottles, 1 in 3 chance for the batteries, and 1 in 2 chances for the weapons. Now, if we take out the batteries, all the odds get better. And so what I think then is now you actually allow a little more room for people to feel comfortable peeking at the solar storm row and not just obsessing over the contract cards. So if the batteries are gone, now we have 14 cards remaining. 4 of those are water bottles. 10 of those are weapons. So 5/7 chance to flip a weapon that you want, or 2 in 7 to flip a water bottle. So you're just more likely to get the weapon and feel good about that. Anyway, look at me trying to do math. This is crazy. This is definitely not my strength. Well, anyway, so now with a little more certainty, a better chance, higher probability of flipping what you need, that creates a little more of a cushion for you to be able to spend your peaks up here on the solar storm. So that's kind of cool. This is all just by taking out batteries. Of course, we also save on components. All right, that was the first big change. Here's the second big change. Let me add some objects. I really like that Twitch figured out the whole spamming issue. I mean, I don't know for how long they've done that, but just like the automated modding is kind of nice. So I wondered what is a way that I could add a different type of wind condition. So a little more attention around what's going on in the map. So like Beyond the Sun, of course it's like area majority. I didn't super want to dive into that, and I feel like that might be ripping off to Beyond the Sun a little too much. But I wouldn't, because things are so scarce in this game anyway. I kind of thought maybe that would be too just too difficult to try to because movement is difficult. I don't know. Area majority seemed like I couldn't really come up with a simple way to do that anyway. Instead, what I'm thinking is, okay, we're going to end up with players having extra items. That'll be a little less likely now that you're more likely to want to get rid of them and be able to get rid of them by trading them for contracts cards. But 4 players have the potential to get an item. And there are only total 14 items, 14 contracts in the game. So throughout the game, you're going to have a bunch of extra items. And so what I'm thinking is that if you fulfill a contract, that's a reward all its own. And it's the main use of an item at this point is fulfilling contracts. What if there was another use of those items? And this I would need to play test and workshop quite a bit. But what I was thinking is, if you're at a location and you decide you can fulfill a contract, so you would discard an item that way. But what if you could discard some number of items, maybe even 2 or 3, depending on how many people end up collecting? I don't know what that's going to be like. Anyway, maybe 1 or 2. I'm not sure. But let's say 1 for now. So instead of fulfilling a contract, instead of attempting to fulfill a contract, you could just discard the item to leave a cube in that space as influence or something like that. And what I was thinking at first was, well, then if somebody comes behind you, they can knock your cube off, right? But also, I think another way. So in other words, maybe blue comes by later, and now blue is influencing this planet number 4, as just one example. And then maybe red wants to fight for it, and then comes back and drops off an item, and now blue loses that territory. So that was one way to do it. Another way to do it is to just drop off cubes, right? So maybe everybody could leave a cube here. And either way, if it turns out that you're just whatever you're controlling, this is the first one I described is very much Beyond the Sun. You take control over it, you send, your opponents, you send their disc back to them, and you leave yours. Well, you could also do this. You just leave these cubes here, and then at the end of the game, if somebody survived the solar storm and they have a cube at 4 of 5 planets, they win immediately. It doesn't matter how many victory points they have. I was thinking that could be pretty dramatic and kind of exciting, kind of fun. The reason I think it works in theory, this is totally untested, but the reason I think it works in theory is that you do want to save items, and I mean, you want to use items in order to fulfill contracts, because that, of course, that gives you victory points, but more importantly, it gives you credits. And credits are your lifeblood that keep you in the game. Right? That's how you participate in auctions, and in participating in auctions is how you get to take actions. So if you run out of credits, you have to start taking loans, which are negative victory points. You get a decent influx of cash. But anyway, the main trade-off then with this other system is that now you're just like the item you're using for this just vanishes. It's just gone, and the only thing you get for it is to leave a cube at a location. So what I think is, players may feel some tension there, like, oh, I have a few extra guns right now, so I could leave a gun here just to mark it, but then like blue, let's say, but blue is like way ahead, so I kind of don't see the point. Let's say blue is like this. I kind of don't see the point of leaving my stuff there if blue is way ahead. And of course, if more than one player does this, then tie breaks would be like victory points. Or there'd be like a whole chain of tie breaks, including victory points and then credits and then fulfilled fulfilled contracts or whatever. So I like the theory of what's going on here. I just don't know. I haven't. It's completely unplay tested, so that's the main issue. So 2 big changes all yesterday while I was working on the material prototype. Getting rid of the batteries and adding this like influence concept, which is a little bit like a race. It's a little bit like an area majority thing, but it's not quite area majority. Now, if you had the ability to like send... Oh, wait, what am I doing? These are weapons. What do weapons do? Weapons let you blast other cubes off of the space. What do water bottles do? Water bottles let you place a cube on the space. No, because there are only 4 water bottles total. So you'd have to really go like all in and nobody mess with you at all. So I could increase the water bottle count by a little bit. The trouble is that it's possible that there might not even be enough water bottles in the game for anybody to do it. There's a possibility of no water bottles being in the game, actually. That's because we're only using 10 of the items, and then combining those items with what is it? The Founders Bank and the Solar Storm card. So you might actually never see water bottles. I thought that was such a cool idea for a second. but I don't see it working. Not with the distribution the way it is. I also don't really like the concept of somebody being able to take off your cube, to like remove your cube. That would be pretty annoying. It's just once you've done something good for the people, they like you, right? But I still think this would be hard because movement is still tough. No matter what, it's going to be hard to get a lot of movement done. And also, I think you really do want to use those items in order to get credits. So it should work. And there should still be tension even if you let everybody just place. It doesn't matter what item. I think that should be fine. Um anyway, so definitely something to something to test for sure, which I'm pretty excited about. I think an alternate win condition sounds really good. But importantly, that player still has to survive the storm. It's just that it doesn't matter what victory points they get. So they can just not bid on a lot of they can kind of maybe now that I'm thinking about it, because they could kind of bid low but still bid. So at least they are getting items, and they can just ignore getting victory points entirely. It looks like my stream is a little unstable here, but I like this a lot. So you could have a player who just focuses on that. They do is bid low so they get items, and then they can just ignore the victory point stuff and they just take movement and just go and drop these off. It actually might be way too easy. So what I'm realizing is why not? Yeah, it should be 5 out of 5, not 4 out of 5. Because I think it's essentially possible. I mean, if I just keep the rules really loose and really basic, like elegant, simple, then you can take any number of actions on your turn. And what that could mean is, let's say you're blue, and you've got some items. You could actually just cruise around. Let's say, if let's say the cop is right here. Blue just spends one move, drops off an item, one move, drops off an item, one move, drops off an item. Now, it might be difficult to get 3 move tokens and have 3 items, maybe, but also maybe not. Maybe just in one turn, the guy pretty much finishes the whole thing. I don't know. That might be like the ideal or the optimal strat then is just ignore victory points altogether. Importantly, though, you still need to survive the solar storm. So if that's what they've been busy doing, no, I think this is cool. I think they still have a problem. I think they still need to find ways to earn credits. So they're not going to want to drop off all their items in that way. And of course, I imagine they would be mainly dropping off water bottles if they come up, but I'm not sure. Yeah. So I think this just extra layer for an alternate win condition really elevates the game. I was actually talking through like my pitch yesterday as I was cleaning. I was getting ready for my friend Adam, who is here for the retreat. He's staying with me for the week. Anyway, as I was just kind of like circling, my apartment, doing random stuff, I was talking through the hooks in the game, or the main features of the game. the tensions, the main, I think 3 main tensions. Tension number 1. The credits you use to earn victory points are the same thing you need to protect your victory points. That is problem number 1. That's always in the background. That one is always hanging over your head. And that's important, that one. Because the solar storm is coming eventually. And you need to be ready for it. And it's credits that you use in your auction that are going to protect your victory points when the solar storm comes. That's problem number 1, and that is, I think, the most interesting, fundamentally interesting thing about the game. The next tension is in how you use your action tokens. So, no. Sorry, it's the auction itself, the result of the auction. Because yes, you're bidding on victory points, but you're also bidding on turn order. So actions and turn order. Okay, let me start over. Fundamental tension number 1 is the currency you use to gain victory points is the same currency you need to protect victory points. That's fundamental. That's important in that I think that is fundamentally interesting. Okay? Second tension is that you're bidding on both actions and turn order. This is the second tension. Actions and turn order. And the higher you bid, the better the payout. So you get more actions. Let's look. Actually, this is a great example. So the way the auction is resolved is blue. Let's say blue is the highest bidder, so blue gets that good stuff. Here's how this goes. So blue gets interesting. These cards look like really thick. Okay, so blue gets 2 move and 2 peak. Yellow gets 4 victory points and a peak. Green gets 1 victory point and a peak. Red just gets the item, but everybody that participates also gets the item. Okay. Now, in reverse bidding order, so the lowest bidder now gets to act first. Then the second lowest bidder gets to act. So you get paid out from top to bottom, but then you act from bottom to top. So even though blue has all this great stuff, other players might change the board state so that this stuff is not as useful, right? Let's say last turn blue peaked at a certain contract. Well, yellow jumps in, scoops up that contract, so now blue doesn't know what it is. So now blue has to burn one of their peaks in order to look again, right? So that's tension number 2. You're bidding on action. You're bidding on big payouts, and also you're bidding on the payouts and also turn order. The second tension. Okay, third tension is now out here on the map. Either you're focusing on delivering items, or you're focusing on influencing planets. So is this the new third tension? It might be. It might be a really important strat to try. Of course, there are other tensions. Like, what do you peak at? Do you peak at the solar storm, or do you peak at contracts? Right? So that's another great tension. A decision issue. How much do you care about the police bot? Right? So, I don't know that there's as much of a tension there as there is just like a fun problem, like avoiding the police bot, or like essentially attacking other people with it, because you can basically send it around yourself as you fulfill contracts. So it's actually the players who are fulfilling contracts that affect the police bot, right? if you don't fulfill a contract, then you don't affect the police bot. In other words, if you're just dropping off an item to influence the planet, the police bot doesn't care. If you're trading, you're smuggling, actively smuggling, the police bot is going to act and move somewhere. So I think that's a good problem. Now, if all of a sudden with this new layer, there's real tension there with players, like, oh, am I going to focus on, delivering items or fulfilling contracts or influencing? I feel like that could be cool. All right, well, this was good to talk through. I didn't update the mod or anything like that. I was just happy to think through things with you. Most of all, thanks for hanging out. I will see you soon. Have a productive day, and bye-bye for now.